Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the Jamodi Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information.
So many times I think, golly, all these things that we try to impart to our guys, like basketball's a game of mistakes, man. You miss the layup. Next play, move on. It was a bad call. Next play, move on. How many of those times, in the moment, am I heeding my own advice? Okay, next play. I mean, you don't have time to get worked up over this. I mean, let's move on to the next, whether it's with the player, with the coach, with an official, it doesn't matter. Like, the game, that's the beautiful part of the game is it's moving and you've got to stay in the moment. And for me, basketball can be hard to stay in the moment if I allow myself to get distracted. And I say that because I have allowed myself to get distracted. It is difficult for me to not be distracted at times. But I do think that we've gotten better the longer we've done it, the longer we're in it, because, you talk with other coaches, you talk with friends, you go to clinics, and you think, if I'm telling kids, move on, next play, have a next play mentality, is that how I'm coaching them? Is that what I'm demonstrating? Am I, and sometimes you don't like the answers that you get if you're being honest with yourself. But I think that helps make us better. And I think it helps, our guys understand, oh, okay, he was able to move on from it. And hopefully you can lead by example sometimes and not just verbally.
Yeah, no, that's good. Confidence in players is, I think, something we need to be conscious of, where their confidence level is throughout a season or throughout a practice. There's a debate on whether we can give them confidence or not, where it comes from, but how do you build it or at least support it in your players?
Great question. I come down firmly on the side of we cannot give them confidence. I do think that we can take confidence away from them, and you have to really guard against that. I believe that confidence occurs, and we openly talk about this with our guys. Confidence comes from doing difficult things over a period of time in pursuit of a difficult or challenging goal, and then achieving that goal. And I think that for us, one of the things that we found through the years, David Milson, God rest his soul, was at Cedar Hill. And when I opened a new school, Stevens High School here in San Antonio, maybe 22, 23 years ago. That was the job I had before making the move over here to Reagan. I knew that our demographics were going to be similar. And I knew David was a great coach. And I met him just, at TABC and state tournament. And I knew what a great guy he was. But we had to take our oldest son up to Shriners Hospital in Dallas. And so there wasn't much for me to do. My wife kind of wanted me to get away. And so I just cold called David. And for 2 or 3 days, I went every day and just spent all day with him there at Cedar Hill. And, one of the things that he told me, he said, John, we're going to miss time in the gym before we miss time in the weight room. And I loved how physical his teams were. I loved how hard they played. And I loved his interactions with those teams. And so I picked his brain. I stole every idea I could from him. And we really dedicated ourselves to the weight room when we got back, and we still do that to this day. We lift 3 days a week. Now you can lift in the summer. We lift almost year round, 3 days a week. And for several reasons. One, if you want to be a physical team, you better have some body mass, right? And it's got to be solid. But I think more importantly for us is, again, we're coaching teenage boys. I've never found anything that helps young men develop confidence in themselves better than the weight room does. And I will tell you this, here's a good story for you. quite a while ago, we used to go up to Austin and go and visit with their strength and conditioning coach. And I remember one time, him telling us, it was right after Kevin Durant left. And he said, one thing I'll tell you is in basketball, it's got to be basketball specific lifts. I'd get fired. They should fire me if I was teaching Kevin Durant, if we were developing his bench press. There's no basketball movement in the bench press. And I thought, well, I know you're smarter than me, but here's what I know. High school boys, they measure their strength by one lift and one lift only, and they always have and they always will. Every single time. Nobody ever asks, what do you curl? What are you doing on the French press? They're not doing any of that stuff. They want to know, what do you bench? And that is why we bench. And that's why we max on the bench. Most of our guys, especially when we get them in as freshmen, gosh, we got guys barely get the bar up, right? And they don't know how to lift, and they just don't. And we celebrate the old 200-pound club, and that's a big barrier for most of our young guys. And when they get up 200, we're going to film it, we're going to put it on social media, and everybody's going to be excited for them. And you know what? When a kid hits the 200-pound club, there's something that is just magical about his confidence because he had to do it. Like we tell our guys, hey, man, you did that. Your mom can't love you enough for you to bench 200 pounds. Your dad can't give you enough, positive feedback and pats on the back. Your coaches can't inspire you enough. Nobody can do that but you. You did that. Here's the number that you started with, and you just threw up 200 pounds, and you did it by yourself. And you did it because we've had a plan and there's support, but you did it. And I believe that is a great lesson for young people to learn. And it bleeds over to what we do on the court. You want to be a great shooter? You got to get in the gym and you got to shoot 10,000 shots. And you got to shoot them at game speed. You know what? I've never had a guy that shot 10,000 shots at game speed that didn't turn out to be a good shooter.
Yeah.
It's never happened. We're batting 1,000 on that. We just hadn't had a whole lot of guys 10,000 shots up. But Jack Kramer is one. Jack Kramer, you're probably too young to remember, but he was a famous tennis player back in the 40s and 50s, and he wrote a book. And he said, you want to have a great serve in tennis, you have to practice. You have to hit 10,000 serves, 10,000 of them, and then you're gonna have a great serve. Well, I felt that way about shooting. If you go in the gym and you get up 10,000 shots, Jamal Wilkes shot it over there. A pretty daggum good shooter because he practiced shooting it over and over and over the same way. So I believe that confidence comes from achieving something that was hard. And when you're a teenager, the weight room is a huge opportunity to develop confidence in yourself. All of a sudden, guys are walking around a little bit. Those shoulders are back a little bit, and they're kind of looking in the mirror. And you know what? Now, all of a sudden, all those other lifts we're doing, there's a reason for those. Now they're a little bit more bought in. We are big believers in the weight room. We're big believers in the mentality that it sets. So you want to be a tough physical guy, the weight room is your friend. It's not the only way to build confidence, but it's the first way that we've seen it have a direct correlation to confidence out on the floor. Because I think it's easy for kids to see that translates. Oh, if I put that work in the weight room, then I come over here, put it in the gym, I should see those kind of results as well. And they should, if they're focused and they're following a set routine. I do think coaches have to be careful with taking confidence away. I do think you can hurt kids' confidence, again, with poor communication skills. Even a guy with a good heart can say the wrong thing at the wrong moment, and it can give a guy, it can set him back. But I'm not afraid of hurting kids. Like bad shooters, I'm not afraid of hurting their confidence. I mean,
what did
Coach
Sampson say? He's like, I don't want my bad shooters to be confident in their shot.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm a big believer that we don't give any confidence. Can't be given. I've never experienced that in my own personal life. The things I'm confident in, you know what, I've worked really hard for, and I've done them, and I had to overcome some things and there were times I didn't know if I'd ever do them, but I did. And those are things now that I'm confident in. I think that's pretty easy to see, with young teenage guys.
Coach, I love so many great things there. You started off with a really small nugget, though, that we can't forget to do, which is call other coaches, ask questions, have conversations. part of, like we talked at the very beginning of my motivation for this is, it's hard, getting harder and harder, or it seems like there's less opportunities just to go places with other coaches. TABC is still there, but even then, I feel sometimes when I go down there, there's some isolation. I have my group. We don't really reach out and talk. State tournament, when it was in Austin, I felt like was one of those deals where everybody meets there. It's almost like its own clinic. But so now, Zoom is still a way to get to have a little bit of that. I love what Coach Milson said. I had an opportunity to meet him a few times before he passed.
Great man, great coach, but a better man.
Yeah, and I think he was so spot on, and I didn't get it. I didn't get that for probably the first half of my coaching, which was not going to sacrifice weight room time for the court. I think majority of us will say that we have so many things we have to get done. Where can we cut? We'll cut that. So the last 5 or 6 years, a huge motivation for us at Faith is to be more, we shoot it and we run and gun. Let's get more physical. And as a player, sometimes it's funny, Coach, like you forget what you actually had to do to be a player or to compete at whatever level you're at. The weight room was the only way that in high school or in college I could compete. But I forgot that early on. I thought it was all skill, all court. So we've been going 3 days a week in season and 4 days out of season for the last 5 years. You're right on the money. I usually equate the weight room with toughness, but I've never really thought about it as far as building confidence. But it's so true. When you can get your guys to start to take their shirts off in the weight room and they're flexing and lifting, you've got it. Like, it's growing. They're starting to see that, okay, wait a minute. If I put in time and effort, I get something out of it. Like there is that idea that will translate to shooting, translate to schoolwork that you get from the weight room. I've told the guys, like, I want that what we do in there will just enhance everything we do out here. I think it's important for basketball players for us to connect the weight room, because there are the Kevin Durant's that he couldn't bench 135 in college, but he's one of the best dudes to ever play. They don't all need it, but it'll help all players, though.
I know this. It hadn't hurt any of them.
That's right.
We've had come through. It's not held them back.
Yeah.
A couple of other things. One that we stole from David. David said, it's the weight room was also the only place, and we do that to this day. It's the only place, the only time where I'm not constantly, teaching and correcting and motivating and pushing. Hey, we're in the weight room, and especially like you said, once those guys start to feel a little, they're kind of in there. I'll get in there and I'll kind of pose with them, and is this what you're hoping to get this, And David, he was skinny, and he would make fun of himself in there, and those guys would crack up. And we've had guys, obviously they know they'll roll their eyes at me, but I think it's important for them to see a little bit different side of us, right? I mean, if you're just always on,
yes,
that's really hard. And so there's that. And then, like you talked about individually, but we share this with our guys. Hey, the weight room is a great equalizer for us. For us to compete at the highest level in our region and to try to make a run in the playoffs every year, the truth of the matter is we are rarely going to be the most athletic team on the floor. I mean, at some point, we're going to play people that are more athletic than us. And we've got to hope that we can close the gap some athletically by being physical and by our work in the weight room. And hopefully we've got enough confidence because of the hours that we've put in the weight room that it translates over into style of play. And I do think that it is an equalizer. It has helped us through the years. Again, whether we are the stronger team or not, we think we are more often than not. And heck, that's half the battle. If you can get them believing, right, then you're halfway home. So I think I'm a big believer in that.
Coach Thomas was the master of that. I came when I moved down to Texas from Pennsylvania, and right before my freshman year, I was only about 5'7", really skinny, size 13 shoe, but I was skilled. But I had never been in the weight room, and I didn't care about it, no connection, and I slid by as a freshman. grew a bunch going into my sophomore year, but still super skinny. And going into my junior year, Coach Thomas said, he's like, he might not have said tail, but he said, if you don't come back stronger your junior year, I'm going to kick your tail. And but what he did was he would be in the weight room with us in open gyms in the morning. It was open gym, open weight room. Maybe sold us Advocare products back in the day, some POS2 that had creatine in it. Maybe he was selling that, but we got into all that stuff and we were lifting and that. But he used to say, if you feel big, you play big. And he was right on the money. And my senior year, we had the most jacked team around but we also gave us a lot of confidence. But you also got, you touched on something else about in the weight room. It's a great moment to get, so positive touches are a big thing. A goal of mine is to say everybody's name every workout and to get some type of positive touch, pat on the back, a fist bump, a bump, like something, so that every player goes home, I heard my name and there's some type of interaction. Because you probably had or either heard from other players or things, or where I actually talked with a player the other day about a previous school, and it was, I didn't know if the coach knew my name. And so we have to be intentional with that. But the weight room's a great time. And then how we meet with players one-on-one is a great time for them to see us in a different way. Because you're right, if it's only when we're on in practice, then there's going to be a disconnect between what did Don Meyer say? That they don't care what you know until they know how much you care. They need to know that. And you nailed a couple points where we can create that relationship.
Yeah, we're believers. And, the beautiful thing about basketball is one of many beautiful things is there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Like Bobby Knight's way wasn't Dean Smith's way, and Dean Smith's way wasn't John Wooden's way, and John Wooden's way wasn't Coach K's way. I mean, there's all different, but for us and as the head coach, for my personality and for our coaching staff, and for the talent that we have, because we've been blessed with some great players, just not overwhelmingly athletic players. We've had some very good athletes, but that's not our bread and butter, so to speak. And so we're big believers in the weight room and making sure that it makes sense to the guys. Why are we doing this in the weight room? Why? Here's why. Because this is how we're going to use it on the court. And this is how, there's no substitute for confidence. You're going to be a better player if you're confident, and nothing wrong. We like it. You want to, if a guy goes in the weight room and he's taking his shirt off, he's put in the work. We'll tease and make fun of guys for all sorts of things, but if a guy goes in there and takes his shirt off and he's kind of checking him in the mirror, hey, we encourage that, let's go. Let's get bigger.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.